Hi everybody, Elliot here. So I thought we would have a go at trying to recreate some of ACDC's exciting track brimming with chutzpah, TNT, with that really nice, emblematic, distorted riff. And today I thought to recreate parts of the track that I would use Logic Pro as my digital audio workstation to kind of underpin the creation of the track. I'm also using a neural DSP Quad Cortex. It's a tool and a guitar modeler that I'm particularly enamoured with. I recognise there's been kind of some mixed reviews. I'm a real proponent. I think it's absolutely superb. I think it represents a really effective way of emulating guitar amps and sounds with real precision and real ease as well, which I think is important. I particularly like its developing interface. That is a real virtue. I'm also going to be using some kind of third-party plugins or VSTs using IK Multimedia's MODO Bass 2. This is a really nice bass plugin, just a little bit better quality than the integrated native kind of bass plugins that reside in GarageBand and its bigger brother Logic Pro. We're also going to be using a Jamstik Studio, which is a really nice piece of equipment that's actually a kind of a conventional electric guitar, but also has a superbly clever pickup on it, which can convert the analog sound, as it were, into a MIDI signal using the MPE technology, and that works beautifully with either GarageBand or Logic Pro, and allows you to take control of some of those virtual instruments. We'll also be using some other MIDI controllers, perhaps kind of a keyboard with some pads as well, to kind of put in some of the percussion parts manually using some of the built-in tools. I'm also using my PRS as well. I've got a PRS SE 245. I've actually upgraded this with a new set of Seymour Duncan SH4 humbucking pickups in the bridge. That's just given it, I think, a little bit more transparency, a slightly airier tone, which I thought was perhaps superlative to the original bridge pickup that came with the guitar. Well, something I noticed as well when analysing the original song is that there's actually much less distortion being utilised on the guitar tracks than perhaps one might anticipate. I think that's actually applicable both to the rhythm guitar, that really iconic riff. So you've got this riff, you've got as you can hear, there's not a lot of distortion there. So what I've done for the rhythm guitar parts is I've actually rolled back the gain. There's no preamplification, distortion or overdrive. It is just pure Marshall Plexi 50 watts. I haven't conformed and emulated his exact, or Angus's exact setup and configuration. I've just gone with a kind of a similar setup that I've just created using the Quad Cortex, and it sounds pretty good. But I've backed the gain right down for the rhythm guitar, and then for the lead guitar, especially for the guitar solo, I've just simply pushed the gain up on the amp itself, just to drive the gain and get a slightly more screaming kind of sound coming through there as well. So I'm also going to just quickly show you the Jamstik Studio. So if I just pop this down for a moment. So this is pretty wonderful piece of equipment because it is a conventional guitar and it has standard normal pickups like any other guitar would, but what's really nice is that it has this integrated MIDI pickup. So as a guitarist, this is ideal for me, so I can transfer my skills into MIDI instruments. I can use this not only to control, I'm actually using the IK Multimedia MODO Bass 2 plugin today to create the bass sound, but I could use this to control a Steinway grand piano or a set of synths. So it's really quite a powerful, versatile tool. Perhaps somebody with a very rudimentary piano skills, when perhaps using a MIDI controller, this for me just represents a much more engaging, effective way of recording in MIDI virtual instruments. So it's a really great tool. I'd highly recommend them, and actually it's quite a nice conventional guitar to play and sounds pretty good as well. Okay, so let's go over to the track and kind of start working through playing in some of the riffs and the parts to the track and see whether we can kind of get something that sounds fairly close to perhaps the original. I recognise that the original was perhaps slightly down-tuned, especially on the guitars and the bass. I'm just sticking with normal tuning just because it's easier, and it's just too much faff trying to match that with virtual instruments as well. So yeah, let me know what you think of the video. I'd love you to subscribe. I'm obviously planning on releasing a plethora of videos in the coming year, so please hit the button, subscribe, and let me know what you think, and share any of your ideas with me as well. That would be great. Okay, so a new project in Logic. So we're going to adhere to the original tempo of the original track, which is 126 beats per minute. The track's in E major. There we go, it's a 4/4 as well. Okay, so now we add in some of the percussion parts using the Novation MIDI controller and the touchpads. The kick drum there for the intro section. So now we're going to capture the bass using the Jamstik Studio MIDI guitar, so using the MODO 2 bass plugin. Now over to the rhythm guitar, so using the Quad Cortex to generate the tone here. Obviously just starting to layer the track up now. Okay, so now I've showcased the recording and capture of some of the kind of core constituent instruments that comprise the track, getting an idea of how I'm employing the Jamstik as a MIDI controller. It's worked really effectively actually to capture the bass in conjunction with the MODO 2 bass plugin, which sounds really good, and I think works really well just to replicate real bass sounds. You can see that the plugin has a nice interface as well, with lots of control over the type of bass as well, and the kind of the settings of the bass that will have a real effect on its kind of tone and overall timbre as well. But I thought it would be worth just articulating and elucidating the process that I've employed to kind of mix the track a little bit, just so that there's a nice stereo landscape, which I guess is one of the ultimately the principal objectives of the mixing process. So what I've done is I've just used some basic panning. I've set the levels on the tracks appropriately so they just sit in the mix there as I'd like. Obviously the vocals here at the top that we extracted earlier on, that just sits there nicely at the right level. I've not applied any effects into the channel strip for the vocal because obviously that's already been done from the original track that I've isolated it from. But I've applied some kind of effects onto the channel strips of the guitars and all of some of the other instruments as well. So for the guitars, I've just applied some EQ, some compression, a little bit of extra reverb, and also just so that the guitars sit nicely in the mix, and obviously the overall stereo landscape. I've used some of the stereo imaging tools that Logic offers, which I think are really nice. You can just place them really nicely into the mix. They just sit there and come through really clearly. You can use that really well in conjunction with some traditional panning on your channel strips here as well. For the drums, obviously, as I showed you, I used one of the MIDI interface Novation launch key controllers with the touchpads to manually play in some of the kick drums and the toms on the intro. But then for the verses and the kind of a chorus / solo, I've actually just used GarageBand's own built-in native smart drummer tool, which I think is actually excellent. It's really effective. You can change different drummers who all have distinct differentials in their characteristics they're playing, the overall timbre, the style of their playing. You can interchange how those drums sound, and you can use the intelligent tools such that it will analyse particular tracks that you specify, and it will follow the overall rhythm and structure. You can obviously change some of the parameters here, like increase the number of fills, for example, and the complexity and the intensity of the drum sections that you're including. So that's a really useful tool, I think, especially for me. It has a really rudimentary understanding over percussion and drums, so I'll leave that to the professionals. But there we go. That's in a nutshell. That's just how I've kind of really quick way and fun way as well, actually, of just recreating a really well-known track with that really iconic riff that we all love, and those superb vocals. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I think perhaps we'll just do another run through of the overall track as well, perhaps with a little bonus extra guitar solo there at the end as well. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think, and please share and please like, and I'll see you soon.